16 minutes past the top of the hour. You're right in time for our first conversation this Thursday morning. We look at the ravaging effects of droughts in our country. 4.35 million Kenyans is the number that was released by NDMA as of last year in November. So we look at how those numbers are looking like. Have they increased? Have they decreased? What interventions have been made by the state? How long has this intervention gone? And just what lasting solutions can we get as a country as far as drought is concerned? That is what we are set to converse in like the next 40 minutes. I'm holding court with Edwin Mukabana, who is the CEO KBS and also a member of the National Steering Committee on Drought Response. Karibu to the program, sir.
Thank you very much.
Let's just latch in this conversation looking at this steering committee appointed by the president in November last year. My memory serves me correct, that it was on 21st November.
Yes.
Just basically talk to us about the mandate of this committee.
Yeah, the mandate of the committee is to coordinate activities of drought in this country, knowing that NDMA is in charge, and we have other non-state agencies like Red Cross that are involved, FAO that are involved, World Food Program that also distribute food. But these things are not well coordinated, even the private sector having been doing the same. So in the wisdom of the deputy president and the president, they decided that we need a private sector-led team to be able to assist in the coordination and distribution of the food. So the wider mandate is to see, is there sustainability? How can we look at long term? Because this drought doesn't seem to be going away.
Yeah.
It comes today, tomorrow we think it is gone, then it reappears again.
Yes.
And if you put in the light of the current climatic change issues, you can see that this drought issue is going to be with us for a long time. Yeah.
So basically more of what you do is coordination, bringing on board all these various stakeholders as far as drought mitigation is concerned.
Yes, and also assisting in the raising of funds. Because we have other ways in where we can bring in the private sector to complement what the government is doing and what the other agencies like the UN are doing.
I hear you. And of course we'll come into that in all that momentarily, because that's ideally what's in the short term being done even by the state when it looks to when it comes to cash transfers and food. But before that, I was just looking at some of those statistics that were released by NDMA, and as far as what they did say is that this particular situation has continued to deteriorate, and as of November, we have said this over time, it was 4.35 million Kenyans, and as we speak we are almost clearing the 5 million mark. From where you sit, how dire is this situation?
The situation is very dire. When we sit in Nairobi and in some counties like Western Kenya, you think things are normal. But when you travel outside to areas like Samburu, Wajir, the Mandera, Kilifi even, you find that this situation is very, very dire. When you take the fact that drought affects also livestock, because we lost over 2.5 million livestock. That means the people in that region have lost livelihoods. So you've got poverty and also drought and hunger going together, and this makes life very difficult.
The harsh reality of climate change.
I hear what you're saying, but also 14 counties in the alert phase, 7 in alarm phase. We're looking at over 20 counties, almost half of 47 counties in the country. What does this even mean? When you say that some counties are classified in alert, some in alarm, what is the demarcation?
The demarcation is that when you get to the areas that are there, you find that you need food distribution. Then you realize that it's there. You need to ensure that there is water. And then also you have a situation where you need children with malnutrition. As we are talking right now, close to 1 million lactating mothers and pregnant mothers are affected. So you find that in those regions it's very bad. But in the alarm situation, we are saying that if nothing is done, if rains don't come, then this situation is going to get even worse. And
so the alarm is much worse?
Yeah, no.
Alert is much worse?
Yes, alert is much worse, yes.
All right. All right, so then you're saying that in the alarm we really need to make sure we get interventions very quickly before it gets to that particular point.
Yeah.
But you'd hear counties like Embu, I saw counties like Narok.
Yes.
These were counties that you wouldn't even hear any cases of drought.
Siaya and Homa Bay and Migori, you would never have had that. Climatic change issues. We need to sit down and look at all these issues about climatic change. We need also to look at how we distribute food in this country and how we take care of ourselves. You should also note that this thing also goes with a lot of diseases and malnutrition, which we need to take care of. So the situation is getting worse and worse by the day, and we need to get preparedness to ensure that we support NBMA in getting the correct data and ensuring that programs to alleviate the situation are in place. You did talk about climatic change, and I want you to elucidate a bit further, because just in November we were having the COP27, and quite a number of issues are profiled as far as this event was actually happening. And the biggest question, especially by African countries and African leaders who were there, is the fact that we contribute about 5% or less than that in terms of emission, but yet we bear the brunt. And this is part of what is also ailing us in some of these African countries as far as drought is concerned. Look at Somalia, Kenya, Ethiopia. What more, just do you think also, before we get to our very own country, that perhaps outside countries or the globe needs to perhaps do to aid and assist African countries? Because look at this, only 5%, but yet we bear the biggest brunt. Yeah, generally what is supposed to happen is that the developed countries or the polluters are supposed to contribute to a kitty, and that kitty then is supposed to be used to assist the non-contributors to climatic change, elevate themselves through green funding or something like that. But this green funding has been elusive. For example, if we are doing a lot of agriculture and we have a lot of tea in those areas with greening that are producing carbon dioxide should be assisted to ensure that they continue producing, using carbon dioxide by producing more oxygen. And that is what we need. Also, we haven't had a lot of tests to give us exactly the pollution levels and what we need to do to ensure. Like Nairobi, the pollution levels, the tests have just started recently, but we need to do all that to ensure that we are then capable of raising an alert, knowing how many tons of carbon emission is there, so that we are able to fight on the global market to ensure that we are getting, we are tapping into the green funding that is supposed to be there. But still, some countries do not want even to join. That's the worst part of it. They'll talk a lot, but they're not joining.
So these African countries do not want to?
The African countries are the victims. Yes. But the developed countries like USA, they are reluctant a lot of times. Biden has come in a bit now talking about it, but before they were not interested at all. The European countries have been very good, so we would like to see how much they do. There has also been blame game between, is it China that is polluting or is it America that is polluting? If China is polluting but America took the factories to China, so who is to take what? So that is it. There is also effort to move away from the fossil fuel, so that we get to electric, especially in transport or something like that. Maybe that will help. And there is a lot of push in Africa now for us to move to electric vehicles. In Europe, the same. And maybe that will start elevating the situation as it is.
You did talk about the funding. So then have these developed countries been contributing? Because then before we get to this green energy and using and move away from fossil fuels, it might take a bit of time. But in the interim, have they been contributing, honoring the pledges? How has this been looking like?
It has been 50-50.
It has been 50-50.
There are some countries that are committed, but there are some that are not very committed.
Okay.
And that has been the biggest challenge. You go to COP 27 or whichever COP, and there is a lot of talk, but no commitment. The commitment is the issue. Yeah.
And in fact, that was the biggest issue that most African leaders had who actually did go there, because there was a concern about not even talking about this contribution up until they really forced for it for them to get to actually commit how much and then from when can this begin. So clearly a lot needs to be done.
Yes.
But back home, let's come to even the interventions that the state has been doing. Basically also what you are profiling as a steering committee. We've had cash transfers, we've had relief food. Just first of all, talk to me about the sustainability of this, because this is the short term.
It is the short term, but it is the inevitable. Because you can't let people die.
There's nothing much you can do.
There's nothing you can do, but you have to do cash transfer. Cash transfer has been found to be more effective because the logistics of taking food and storing, the food gets bad, controlling on theft of food has been a big problem. So there has been a feeling that cash transfers are good and that they can buy food from the people who have gone there to market the food. So that has been good. But together with that, we have still done food hampers to most of the areas in Samburu, Kilifi, and other areas, just to ensure that the people who are affected are given food. As we give food, we must know that there is also need for water.
Yes.
So there is a bit of tracking. So waters are taken to those areas with the trucks to ensure that people are able to access the water.
How are you making sure that this relief food actually do get to the intended persons? This cash transfers, because I had a bit of some complaints. I can't really quite remember from which county specifically, but there was issues, especially when it comes to relief food, that the food gets transported from Nairobi, but to some extent, or just get lost midway. How are you ensuring that they do get to the intended persons, both food and the money?
The money, I think we have done well.
Okay.
Give credit where it is.
Yes.
I think the administration, the commissioners, the county commissioners have done a fantastic job, especially in those areas where there is dire need. You go there. I was in Wamba, and you go there and you see the organization, the identification. They know every person. Even when they come, they call by a list, and you can see even the people who have been called, that these people are needy. So that organization in terms of food distribution has been very good, my personal experience. Insofar as cash transfers are concerned, I think now the target is better. The data that has been kept by NDMA is now much better. And I think we are now seeing that there is a lot of improvement. I will not say no. Yeah, there were a few issues in the past, but we are working on it. And maybe that's why the National Steering Committee is in place, just to ensure that this is done.
Perhaps you can just let us in. What mechanisms are being put in place to work on that? Especially when it comes to, just as you mentioned, I mean, give credit where credit is due. But then again, what mechanisms are in place?
First of all, the first mechanism is to ensure that all the money we have is used well. So we have the PwC being the auditors of the funds.
Okay.
You can see the leadership that has been taken up in the National Steering Committee is credible. You can see they have put in money themselves to ensure that this process goes on. And when we get onto the ground, I think the coordination between NDMA, the administration, commissioners, and the non-state agencies like Red Cross, they've done a good job. So we are trying to ensure that this is done even much better. And the logistics of it is supported by teams like G4S.
Just hold it there. We'll come back in a bit, just perhaps for you to explain to us more about how you're doing in regards to the audit and what NDMA is doing and the mechanisms. But for now, we just have to take a very quick breather. We circle back and we continue apace with that and so much more in regards to the interventions that you're doing as a committee and as a state as well. Time for that break. We recoil with plenty more of this. Stay with us. Welcome back to the program. You're still on Good Morning Kenya. Drought mitigation is our center of conversation, still holding court with Edwin Mukabana, CEO KBS, and also member of the National Steering Committee on Drought Response. Now, before you took that break, you're talking about the mechanisms particularly put in place to ensure that this cash transfers, this relief foods actually do get to the intended persons. And as you rightfully so said it, that give credit where credit is due, but there's still some loopholes existing here and there. So just perhaps finish up on that particular point, how you are putting mechanisms in place for that purpose.
What we are doing right now is, in the first place, we avoided to accept food because whenever you receive food, the food got bad or there was a problem. So in collection of funds, we said we want cash first. Okay. Once cash comes, then we get reputable companies contracted to pack the food into hampers. Then those hampers are transported by reputable companies. G4S has been one of them, to ensure that the food then is transported to that area. Once the food gets there, it is handed over to the administration. So the administration then, before the food leaves here, the list has already been prepared by NDMA and other agencies like Red Cross. So by the time the food reaches there, they know exactly who is receiving what package. So that way it has been very targeted to ensure that the food then reaches the people that are required. The other thing that we have done is, while raising funds, we have said we want people to adopt a family or adopt a meal, so that you can have some targeted amount of money to ensure that when you are doing that food hamper, it is going. Like the last one we did was around Christmas, where we were saying, just give a meal, and we raised that money and we got a very good response. So by that targeting, we have done very well. Also in terms of cash again, there was an audit through the administration and other agencies like Red Cross, and we got the actual people who are involved. So when we are sending this money, there is an audit that ensures that the money goes to the right people. And so far, I think we've done well.
So far, so good.
So far, so good. I don't know if something else will go wrong, but for now, we are very happy with what is happening. Yes.
Well said. You did mention about adopting these families. Just talk to me about how this plays out, because I also did read that this is part of those alternatives that you're also looking into. How are you ensuring this happens? Just who does adopt these families? How is it playing out?
We're saying that as Kenyans, we have been used to money coming from donor community, from outside. But maybe what we haven't understood, that money also comes from the citizenry of that country. They're the ones who pledge, being shown what is happening in Africa or other places, and then they donate that money in that way. But ourselves in Kenya, we have been very reluctant that you don't want even to produce 200 shillings, which would be helpful for a day's meal in a family in those parts of the country. And we are saying, is there a possibility of you adopting just a meal for that by producing the minimum 200 shillings to the pay bill that we have put in place? Or can you do 6,000 shillings for a month for a family of 4? You see, that then will help us know that we are targeting particular people. And what we are trying to work on is that, is there a possibility of you knowing where your money went, so that you are able to feel that, yes, I have helped a family, and that family is at least having food on the table.
Is there a possibility?
There is a possibility. There is a lot of work going in the background to see how we can target for that information to go, so that when you give, you get a feedback.
Okay.
Yes.
Is this different from what you had in 2011, Kenyans for Kenya? Because now we have Wakenya to Lindane. To Lindane, yes. You know, what is the difference?
There isn't much difference. I think what there is that we do things and stop. We do things and stop. This time we are saying we want a sustained effort, so that this thing is continuous. It is not going to stop tomorrow. So though the steering committee is for 1 year, what we want to put in place is a mechanism that this raising of funds from drought response is a continuous exercise. Let's look at what happened in Ethiopia many years ago. But the Ethiopians have managed that. You no longer hear of that situation. So you do that by putting into mechanisms like, for example, do you have good water pans? How about your boreholes that used to be there? We have boreholes, but all of them are broken down, which means nobody has followed up. And we are now engaging, we are trying to talk with the Kenya Defense Forces to see they've got an elaborate scheme of how to manage, but we're not using them. So we want to tap into all this, including awareness by the Media Owners Association, who have also been asked to come on board to ensure that we have partners who can make sure that this is sustainable.
You did say that you want this to be a continuous process. That's why I juxtaposed it with what happened in 2011 with Kenyans for Kenya. And I like that right now, even with Wakenya Tulindano, you have actually a way in which when one donates, they actually do get a message. They get a response on that. But then why would we want to have a continuous donations? Why wouldn't we get a lasting solution to drought issues in the country?
Yes, we have another committee that is trying to look at sustainability going forward. For example, those areas that are getting the problem of drought, there's also a problem of tree planting.
Okay.
So how do we continue ensuring places like Narok, places like Siaya, that these areas that are emerging, they plant trees and ensure that we look at it? How can we look at our catchment areas, rain catchment areas, and ensure that there is water all the time? How do we ensure that the places where we have sunk boreholes, that the boreholes are maintained and they are there for a long time? How about the places where we have water pans, that when it rains, this water is collected and put into an area, and this water can be used? There is the issue of animals that keep dying all the time. The communities, most of them are pastoralists, and you find that they lose their animals throughout. How do we ensure that there is water for those animals, and how do we ensure that the people in that particular region have a livelihood? Should we put abattoirs in that place so that there is uptake of those animals or when there is drought? Or how do we do that? But there is something that we don't come to think about. This drought has been around. Have we ever thought about the wildlife? Who is taking care about that wildlife?
Who's talking about it?
Yet we have a responsibility. So we're also looking at how do we ensure that the wildlife is taken care of. So all these things, we are looking at them and trying to see what mitigation factors, what long-term mitigation factors. Everything is still in the cooking pot. I will not say that everything has been crystallized, but that is the purpose of the committee. How do we ensure that this thing becomes sustainable in the long run?
I hear you. And just as you speak, I was looking at the screen. I'm looking at how dire that situation is. When you look at that, looking at children, looking at how dry the lands are, the malnourished children, the dry areas. There's really nothing to even collect, and you can really see the ripple effect that this drought is having. Not just like you did mention, the wildlife, the livestock. Look at that. I mean, goodness. And we're also talking about children going to school. This is really also affecting them quite a lot.
It is affecting children going to school because we also are now doing some feeding program
in schools.
In schools, and ensuring there is no malnutrition. Like I said before, we have serious conditions of lactating mothers, some mothers who are pregnant.
134,000.
Yes, and imagine.
These are lactating and pregnant.
Yes.
And children, are talking about almost 1 million. 942,000.
Yes.
Oh. And so then, this makes me to want to ask. So the relief food, definitely a good short-term intervention in the interim. But even as you look at this category of, children and mothers, already they fall in a special group in that regard.
Yes.
So that is there a specific set of food to now deal with the rate of or there is?
There is a particular set of food for that.
Tell me more.
So I'm not very technical to tell you the composition,
yes,
but the package that goes has got all those nutritions.
Okay.
So, and a special team that is just looking at the nutrition to ensure that the children have got that particular
I mean, because that was important to to know if at all then there's something that at least is going to alleviate that burden of malnutrition in these children.
Yeah, you don't just take food.
Because it's food.
No, you don't just take food.
Okay.
There is a particular composition of that package has a particular composition.
So that's why this is a holistic effort.
Yes.
And that's why it had to bring on board different entities and different stakeholders, because you're from the transport sector.
Yes.
And you know.
Yes, that is now the logistic aspect of it.
Okay.
How do you ensure the coordination? Because why is it that we are having maize in western part of Kenya and people are dying in the other part?
And you just can't reconcile that.
So we want to see one of the sustainable measures is that how do we get food from the areas that are needy, from the areas that have plenty to the areas that are needy, and how do we ensure that the food is preserved? Because one of the problems we have in Kenya is that there is a lot of wastage after harvest. You find a lot of cabbage in Nyandarua being thrown away and carrots, and people are dying. How do we preserve that food to be able to be used at a later date? And then how do we distribute that?
In fact, just 2 months ago, farmers in Nyandarua were really decrying the fact that potatoes, cabbages were going bad. And this was the time where we really had the skyrocketing of numbers as far as, the drought is concerned in some parts of the country. And sometimes just couldn't really make sense of the fact that you'd have a section in the country where there's abundance. There's another section where there's just nothing.
Nothing, yes.
Looking at that, Mr. Mukabane, you're also seeing that those livestock, animals dying, and you realize also in these communities, this is the main source of livelihood. They are pastoralists. What is being done?
Right now, the government is putting in place, the government is very sensitive, especially the deputy president, in ensuring that this is corrected. What we would like to see as a steering committee is to ensure that those animals in future do not die where they are. That there is offtake of those animals to ensure that the animals reach the abattoirs. And can you imagine even just the animal skins that got lost in that, the beef that we should have exported. I don't know, as we were growing, Kenya used to export meat and animals to Saudi. Imagine we don't do it again.
But they're dying in the northern part of the country.
Yes, and our animals are dying. So we want to ensure that the government puts in place a program to ensure that there is a way that when there is a drought, those animals are moved to a place where they are kept fattened and then sold, whether it's going to be Kenya Meat Commission or any other abattoir, and then the food is either packed or preserved for export or to be used at a later time, not allowing animals to get wasted like
the way
that.
they're happening. And perhaps you can comp my knowledge on this one, given the fact that you sit in this committee. There had been some plans of perhaps the state buying these animals from this pastoralists and looking for ways in which they could even sell them to see how best they could at least assist these families. Because we are talking about the ripple effect of this drought. Look at children going to school. This is their main source of livelihoods. These animals are dying. Did that program commence? How is it?
It looks simple, but there is also a cultural aspect to it.
Okay.
The pastoralists value their animals. It's just like there are parts of this country where people not sell land because land is so precious to them. Now the pastoralists, those animals are so precious to them. Now how to educate them that drought is coming, please release these animals so that they can be kept somewhere, and maybe we have another way of returning the animals to them. You get what it is? Because that is their livelihood. Now, when they die, all of them, they go to nothing. But how do we have a program where they are able to ensure that the animals, yes, they have lost, but they have got money to revamp their stock again when there's no drought, to ensure that their livelihood goes on. So there is a lot of cultural aspect to those animals.
So this was a program in the offing, but there's a lot to be dealt with before.
Yes, on the ground. It's not just as easy as that.
It's not just as easy as buying this animal, selling them off, then
You can go there and they tell you, no, these are my animals, I'm not going to sell.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay, makes a lot of sense. Now, given the fact that you come from the transport industry, you did mention about logistics, but then what more are you doing within your sector? Yeah.
I think what we would like to do is we would like to carry out a campaign as a sector in transport to ensure that people, one, they are sensitized about drought. What we want to see is that all Kenyans need to be sensitized that there is a problem, and this problem must be dealt by us. The government has already committed about 18 billion. As the situation is right now, we don't see the government funding everything, not even in those European countries where the money comes from.
The CS just said yesterday there's no money.
It is the citizenry that feel that we have a cause. Whether the cause is here or the cause is in Turkey, like we are sending something in Turkey. So we should be able to know that, yes, in this county we are okay, but this other county is suffering. In this sector of the economy, there is this okay, but in this other sector of the economy, there is a problem. So as a transport industry, we have a responsibility for the logistic side, for the truckers, the lorries, to ensure that food is able to reach those counties. We should see a business case in transporting food to those areas. As the PSV industry, we have a duty to ensure that we sensitize people about it, and if we can donate something, our wish is that using the pay bill number that we have given out there, we want people to send, even if it's 200 shillings, to ensure that we mitigate this. Now imagine if we send 100 shillings and we are 1 million of us, that's 300 million. How about if we doubled that, and that in a year, you can see we would have made up close to 2.4 billion shillings. And that can help a lot. We are talking about sinking boreholes, repairing boreholes, digging water pans, transporting water by truckers to those areas, sending food, sending the money itself, ensuring that the children who are malnourished are treated and are given food. All these interventions require money, and what we require is kindly, we are looking outside there, people in the Juakali, the people in the matatu industry, the people in the logistics, please send some cash to the number that is going to be given. It is going to be from today, tomorrow. We will see these numbers on the screens of all TV stations and all media to tell people how they can send the money or how you can send a check to the bank account.
So is the number there already? Or
yeah, the number is there.
Might you give us?
It's 880 990.
880-990,
I think. That is the number that you, when you send the pay bill, you send money to that pay bill, then you can help a family.
It will go a long way.
It will go a long way. Yes.
And just this say, earlier on, as you're making that remark, that the government can't do everything. It's just to some extent they can as a government, but then also it takes Kenyans of goodwill to assist to alleviate that burden. Yesterday, the CS Treasury, Juguna Ndugu, was just saying that we need to wait a little bit longer. There's not so much in the coffer. So clearly just shows you that as Kenyans, it is going to take a lot of our responsibility as citizenry.
And let's agree that the issue about our coffers being dry is not only, I think many countries have been affected. The economy in recession is across the whole world. And we need to appreciate that. As we do blame games here and there, we need to appreciate that this issue is a global issue, and we need to help. But giving is not about riches; it's about your heart. when you see somebody suffering and you give, it's not about your reach, it's about your heart. You can share something small that you have. Well, but there are those who have a lot but will not share. We are appealing to your heart. Look at those pictures. Look at those people, how they look like. They're human beings. They deserve. They did not put themselves in that situation. That situation has been caused by climatic change. Nobody, even if you are a country, you could not have plowed or put rain in those areas, manufacture rain for it to rain. No. It's part of our country, and we need to take care of it as we continue to do long-term projects.
Exactly. Giving is not about the pocket, is about the heart.
Yes.
That is the clarion call. You did talk about, even Turkey, and this also reminds me what we did last year as a country when we sent foodstuffs to Somalia, the victims of the bomb attack, just to try and see how we can also help them as a country, which is a very good thing, because you're talking about giving, very important. Right now, in regards to the earthquake that did take place in Turkey as well as Syria, talking about 11,000 victims, and so also as a country we're mulling over sending tea, coffee, nuts, which is again a very good thing.
Yes.
But a caveat, and someone would ask, as a country we are also having the same problem of food shortage. Whilst it's very good to give, might we not want to deal with our very own, exhausted, not sure we are good enough, and then now we can give?
That's a very good question. But sometimes this county might be having more, let me use it to illustrate, might be having more potatoes, while this one has got more millet. Because you have millet, you can't eat all the millet.
Yeah.
So we have tea, which is in excess, but can we take tea to wherever? to Wajir or something? Maybe we need probably to sell that to do. But when there is a disaster, I think we need to look at it as human beings. That heart of being supportive. I don't think what we are giving is going to do magic, but the fact that we are feeling the pain, we are with them, because they did not ask for an earthquake to come.
Yes,
they found themselves. You are okay today. Tomorrow you have a problem. We are saying, just be empathetic and assist.
Yeah. It was so important for me to ask that question, and I think your illustration makes a lot of sense. Now we understand why you would give the tea and coffee and nuts, much as we are suffering, we are ailing with the issues of drought, but it's because that could be in excess for us.
Yes.
And we want the potatoes, you want the unga,
yes.
and you can't produce it. So we give this to get that. Now, as we conclude, Mr. Mukabana, what is it that you'd want Kenyans to know as far as this drought is concerned? You've talked about the short term, the long term, what you're doing as a committee, what the state is doing, but then what would you want Kenyans to know?
As the steering committee under the clarion call wa Kenya Tulindane,
yes,
our interest is one, we want awareness. People should get to be aware that there is a drought, and this drought is not going away. The fact that rain is supposed to come, the projections are the rains are not going to last. They will be here. For 2 months, there's going to be a drought situation. People need to be fed. And thereafter, there will be some short rains. In some areas, rain will not be adequate. And after that, there will be another drought. So these are cycles that are going to come. The other issue that we want Kenyans to know is that we need to contribute something to the kitty. That we cannot allow the situation to go as bad as it is, as the government looks for money. That as Kenyans, we need to complement the NGO world and the other non-state actors to ensure that they bring this issue to the table. Because we don't expect money to be coming from outside, and we are doing nothing about it.
I hear you.
Yeah, so those are some of the things that we would like.
Thank you so much for your time, and highly appreciate your valuable inputs into this conversation. I've been speaking to Edwin Mukabana, CEO, KBS, and also member of the National Steering Committee on Drought Response. We have definitely been looking at the drought situation in the country, looking at possible interventions to alleviate that burden. Good place to end this conversation, but Good Morning Kenya definitely continues after this breather. Stay with us.